Seattle, calling in from San Francisco. We just got an intro from Samil calling in from New York. Tampa, welcome, Jane. That's awesome. And say as we get going, main goal today, show the latest with Chronicle. We were just talking. There's so many new tools, especially on the design side. It's hard to keep up. And so Michael, founder of Worldwide Studios with Dylan, we help people build with the latest tools in 2-week sprints, shipping voice agents, working with new tools like Lovable and Cursor. And what we do every week is we spend about an hour personally trying out new tools in different stacks to see how far we can push different tools. And then we love to demo them to see like what's actually happening. Welcome, Mahik, from the gym. Nice, get the workout in. And so for today, for some context, my background's actually from design, and I've been really interested on the intersection of AI and design. And most tools don't live up to that hype because when you think of how a large language model is trained, everything is tokenized based off of text. So when you start understanding things spatially or compositionally, it's like fitting a square peg in a round hole. It doesn't quite work. So it's been really interesting to see tools that build different experiences and products around that, where you can get to better designed outputs than just if you were trying to use foundation models or trying to hack something together. So the main goal today, I'm going to demo Chronicle. I'll show you a slideshow that I made, talk about the pros and cons of using it. We're in early stage for tools like this, so there's learn. Feel free to drop in the chat any questions you have. This is going to be as interactive as possible, and we'll have time at the end for any QA. QA could be around this tool, could be around things that you're trying to figure out. The one of the main mental model we have is always work towards the problems you're trying to solve personally, because if you just use tools, it's a full-time job to keep up with the latest in AI. So solve problems that are in front of your desk, and happy to help jam on what can make sense to get there. So quick 30-second intro on Chronicle. It's like the Figma meets Framer for slides. And they're really trying to set up an automated workflow and product experience where, just like in Cursor, you can vibe code your way into a front-end web application. The goal for Chronicle is to be able to vibe code into really interactive slides, which I'll show you what that looks like. And it is really interesting. It is web first, so they have some really great features in terms of being able to share things, publish them as websites. This is the slides that I made getting ready for today. I chose a topic that's pretty obscure, tritium recycling, specifically for fusion energy. I just met an engineer and applied physicist from Marathon Fusion, and there's a big problem they're tackling. So I really wanted to push Chronicle to see how far can their research agent copywriting go for a topic that's pretty obscure and there's not a lot written online. Initially, one thing I really like about Chronicle is it has really good design fundamentals, and it's really easy to remix. So being able to make like very simple slides like this intro slide for tritium itself is a hydrogen isotope for nuclear fusion reactions. And the challenge that we have is there's only about 25 kilograms available worldwide, where it's $30,000 per gram. And we need about 100 to 150 kilograms of tritium to generate 1 gigawatt of electricity. So for fusion to work, we can't spend this fuel like fossil fuels, oil and gas, where we just use it and then dispel it. We got to figure out a way to recycle it. I was really impressed by this particular side, being able to get different recycling processes. Again, this was all native within Chronicle, and I'll show you how this was generated. Being able to look at different recovery targets, 95 to 99%. And one thing that I like within Chronicle here is everything is interactive. So as you build in different embeddings or different cards, it's very fun to kind of like click and talk through slides. So in terms of the different steps for recycling, we've got extraction, cryogenic separation, purification, catalytic cleaning, and then also storage, which again, these slides, new to me too, as I made them just in the last hour. And then also in terms of embeds, there's a lot of different embeds in Chronicle. This is an example of showing a YouTube embed.
The direct internal recycling system extracts tritium.
This muted. This is from Kyoto Engineering, which is a firm looking at how to do direct internal recycling on system. So again, really nice to get this embed, and we've got different text around it. And then, just the ending. So these are the slides, and let's actually show what it looks like to jump in and just start from scratch. And so in terms of how Tritium is set up, it's set up like most design software, where you have different workspaces. So you can have like your personal workspace, your project workspace, your team workspace. And in terms of starting, you can, if you already have text, you can start from pasted text. So that could be AI generated, that could be a document you're working from. You can import from a website. Happy to show what that looks like. You also can start from scratch if you want to use it as a design tool. So one thing I like about Chronicle is there's a really good human in the loop. Some tools like Napkin really feel like you have to do all AI or it just doesn't work. And so I actually really like that they're setting up both the design canvas and there's human in the loop. But we're going to try this one, which is generate from a prompt, just to show what the auto looks like right out of the box. As you here, you've got a basic prompt. So let's say, hey, I want to make a startup presentation about tritium recycling. Not going to do much in terms of prompting. You're just going to see what it does here. The interesting thing too is there's some really good query refinements or templates. So if you're a startup and you're like, hey, we want to work on our Series A deck, you could do something like this where it'll give you a template for it. Same thing for user research. If you've got different things you need to paste in. So I found this really nice in terms of just prompts if you want them. And I like testing, seeing how far platforms can go with the laziest prompt just to see how it works out of the box. So we're going to keep this to one line. And then on the bottom here, what we can do, there's different kinds of templates. I'm going to keep auto. I also, when testing out a product, I like using the auto router because I want to see how does it think it wants to make this presentation. But you can see there's different kinds of presentations, sales, proposals, research reports. You can play around with that. In terms of chapters is just like the number of slides. And let's do this as 5 slides. Don't need a 10-slide thing here, just looking for an intro. You can control the writing style, so you can be as creative and abstract or really preserve text based off of the research that it does, and then you can change the language. So that's it. We've got the prompt. We have a few sliders we can pick from and options we pick from, and we'll hit continue. And so the first thing that it does in the workflow is it creates a storyboard or outline that you can actually edit before it creates the slides, which is actually a really nice human in the loop step. And you can see here it's going through a thinking process. So we've got the title, Tritium Revival, which is different than the other one that was presented. So this is really generative. Pioneering sustainable energy through recycling, that's fine. Critical resource. Nice, I hit one of the main points, which is like, hey, 25 kilograms available. That's one of the bottlenecks right now. Nice, and then this is also good. And we can see here as it has what the outline is for these 5 slides, what you can also do in the design phase is actually change what kind of slide it is. And this is a really nice feature I'll show once we create this. So detail statement, that works for now. Let's see what the recovery challenge is. Cool, it's talking about a membrane technology and what that looks like. That sounds good. And so again, can edit things here if we need to, and can change things here. In the true, you can also regenerate it. In the sense of true vibe design, gonna just let this tool cook and see what comes up, because that's the goal. The goal is as least amount of kind of human input as possible to see what the initial output is. And so from that initial storyboard, what it'll do is it'll start making these chapters or pages. So you can see what we saw on the skeleton. We've got this here. And everything is organized just as an initial slide deck. So overall, I like the initial compositions. Like the compositions are really strong. And there's a couple different things that are that can be improved, which I'll show how to do that. So we'll keep this as is. Title slide is fine. When starting to do things like this, I'm like, man, this text is really small. The interesting thing they have in the editor is instead of having like the baseline, let's just format the text, it's really AI first. So in terms of one thing that's really nice is they have a lot of different options for improving copywriting, which is at least half the time of designing good slides. So you can change the writing, you can continue writing, have it write more. You can change the tone of the writing. They've got different personas in terms of writing. You can change the length, and you can also change the prompt. So let's just change the length of this. Let's say this is a little bit too long. I want to change this to 1 sentence. All I'm doing is dragging and dropping, and it's rewriting it. And let's see, with a global supply of tritium, hits less than 25 kilograms. Recycling is an imperative. Cool, that generally works. And then on the bottom, we have this toolbar where we can change the theme or the colors, the backgrounds. You can move around different things. But I think the real main feature here in Chronicle is called Remix. So if there's a specific slide, like I don't like how this is formatted. I think this is way too small for kind of the slide, and I don't want to have to manually drag and drop it. So you can go into here and say, hey, like, do I want this to be more organized with like different bullet points? Do I want like full images? Do I want different embeds? You can also, if you're working on software applications, you can embed different mockups, which is really nice. So they have all these templates that they're consistently adding to. And if I just change this to key statement and hit remix, what ends up happening is it takes the content that was on the slide and it remixes it to that specific slide, which again is really nice in terms of quick iterations. Now we have something that's a lot more readable. And then I think in terms of highlighting, I don't think it's highlighting the best topic. So now I'm just going to manually go in and take that last like 5% to make the slide pop a little bit. So all I'm doing is removing this highlight that they had and let's see. I highlight this. How does this look? Global tritium supplies is limited. AI writing, don't need those extra words. Cool. And now we've got initial text slide. The second gap, and so it's recovery challenge. Let's see. So let's remix this one. This is way too simple for recovery for tritium. So let's do something that has multiple bullet points. Just looking at different ones. Let's try heading with for media and description. So let's see what that looks like. So again, I think one of their main criteria and values as a brand and as a product is like playful. And this is actually like really fun in terms of if you've ever had to make slides like pixel perfect by yourself, it's really fun just to click and have these reset. So let's see what this has. Tritium recycling. This is technical hurdles, our solution. Okay. Copy could use a little bit of work, but generally I like this overall what this looks like. And I think the one thing that was kind of a letdown for Chronicle, really trying to be the cursor for slides, is if 50% of it is copywriting, like 20-30% of slides are images, and can tell here that it's using just basic stock images. And as of right now, there aren't integrations in things like Unsplash, or there's not really like a smart way to generate images. So you do have to either manually find your own images or just have a sense of what you want. So it's as easy as just like uploading. So I've got a few images from that last presentation, which I can just add in. So I think that's, again, as this tool is new and they're building out what the core features are, that's one thing I would have on my wish list. I was like, whoa, I wish I could remix images, whether generate them with different things like GPT image gen, or just search the web. Or connect to Unsplash, because I think that's a really quick way too to make quick presentations. It's not quite there yet. So in terms of manually, you do have to know kind of the images that you want to be able to bring those in. So let's go to this next slide. And I think this is, we just did one with multi-text. So let's just do one with like a big embed. So let's do media here. And in terms of the one thing that I get most excited by for Chronicle specifically, let me show this tab. They have an embed feature where anything where you can get embed code or an iframe for, you can embed into the slides online, and it makes it feel more like a website. So this is something of just time boxing for an hour, getting to know the platform, getting the first slides out, really tweaking and playing with what is working, what isn't working. I didn't get to this. This is something I would spend the next half hour on, is like look at what does it look like to embed different documents for working team presentations? What does it look like to embed different visual, whether it's mood boards in Miro or mockups in Figma? And then also for things like graphs, you can use tools like Graphy, Notion documents, or different things. And so they do have a lot of different ways to embed. I was just trying out the YouTube video because that's one we use a lot when we're doing demos and videos. But this is one thing, and I actually haven't heard of Graphy before. So in terms of like the next 30 minutes, what I would be doing is I'd be making some graphs, seeing how easy it is to kind of have these in different places and then bring them back to Chronicle. So for this in particular, what that would look like, let's see here. So in the upper left, we've got image. We can change this to embed link, and you can change that to large. And then from the embed itself, you can edit if it's a link itself. So you can bring in a YouTube video, show you what that looks like. Or if it's a embed, you can add in different code snippets. And they also have things like the interactive mockup, which is really nice too. And then you've got basic like text, number, icon card. So let's bring in just a YouTube video to show what that looks like. Not a Tritium YouTube video. This is the YouTube video from Chronicle, but just showing as easy as just copy and pasting, and then it'll format the widget for you. And so question in the chat from Mahek, this is like more of a focus in higher quality design than Lovable. Can you upload existing slides and use this to improve your design? Good question. Let's actually test that out. I'll get some slides and see if we can start from a slides. You can import from a link. So if you have a website that you're using, for example, there's ways to use things like that. And we'll see if we can use existing file. I haven't tried that yet. So interesting question. So this is taking some time to load. Won't let that slow us down. Yeah, this data is good. Yeah. So the two gaps in terms of being able to use Chronicle right out the gap. One was image generation, which we talked about. The second one is citations. I really wish in terms of like something like this, where it has like the market size, I wish I knew where this came from, because the downside of working with an agentic workflow for generating copy, this could be hallucinated. So what I end up finding myself is using Perplexity to kind of fact check and make sure this is good. So also one thing I wish I could just either click on this or there was a citation list. So just like we had the skeleton, we had just like all the sources for the slides. I think that would also be a really quick way to remix and enrich the copy, but also have transparency in the workflow. So those are two things that aren't there yet. And if I had to guess, my guess is they're really working on the interactive and motion design side of presenting slides. So that's really their focus just from this first kind of product demo. So that's in terms of walking through the initial product. In terms of the initial features, being able to remix, generate presentations from scratch. Everything is based off of a token system, like most of these tools for credits. I have to go through that if people are interested. And if you've got things you want to try out, I got some extra tokens. Let's do it. So for Mahak's question, can we start with an initial slide? Let's see what we can do from a blank, from starting from scratch. So we can paste in text, generate a prompt, import a URL, turn a website. So it doesn't look like we can bring in a full like PDF, for example, but let's go into, let's see what we can do if we're bringing in a different asset. So the startup I was talking to yesterday is called Marathon Fusion. Their website is interesting. It's all text and it's more just kind of like a placeholder as they're getting ready to go. So let's actually start from their website and see what happens. See what happens if we import from URL. And as this is going too, feel free to post questions in the chat or unmute. Happy to just start taking questions now and discuss as I'm just going through seeing what this looks like if we're importing content. So it looks like this is scraping from the website. So it's able to get all the text. I want to continue. So I think Mahak, for your question, it looks like it can take in text. So if you have an outline or specific parts of a slide that you want to use already, that's one starting point. Doesn't look like it has robust enough ability to take in things like full slide design if you're working in like Google Slides or PowerPoint or Keynote, for example, at least not yet.
So follow up into that, in your opinion, is it best to just start with, just use the prompts and then iterate on what and continue prompted more and more versus trying to take existing asset and tinker with it?
It's a good question. I think it depends on what kind of presentation you're giving. So if you're giving a technical presentation, a research presentation, or internal presentation, I think there's one move away right now from prompt engineering, because the word prompt engineering, because that assumes you can make a single set of instructions that then become throwaway for tasks that are actually really complicated. So Karpathy posted this about a month ago, talking about the idea of context engineering, which is how do you put the right amount of information in the context window so the desired output is closer aligned to what you're expecting versus having to reprompt it over and over again. Like, hey, you messed up this data analysis. Hey, the copy is bad. Hey, you messed up this. So you start thinking about this question of remixing or bringing different information in. I think the quality of a design presentation is really a function of how good the copy is. And when you think of how good the copy is, it's really going to depend on where you're pulling in information from. That could be your notes, that could be research papers, that could be other just context or data that you have elsewhere. So you started thinking about that initial prompt earlier. Let's go back here. Even when you start looking at how they structure their initial templates here, you can see that they have different variables that they're filling in. So one thing that I've started to do, because large language models understand what Markdown is, in prompts themselves, I'll actually create different different parts of the prompt where I'm importing different headers. So here, like here's the data room, paste in some raw data and information, similar research, paste in full copy, startup research, paste in things here. So, and when you start thinking about like what's worth bringing into remix in the beginning, really depends on your intended output. But I would put that into the initial prompt because I think that'll make it a lot closer. So you don't have to change every single slide. It'll use that, especially from that like initial starting point, because this is going from initial idea through structured storyboard to final slide output. So I think for whatever information you have, I would inject it here into the initial prompt as additional context.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions? Any other questions around Chronicle, around slide design, around AI first workflows?
Yeah, I think I don't think we fully got to like mess around with it, but my concern with this platform is like, yeah, 50 token limit for the free. I'm curious, like, do you have a sense of how many you're actually using end to end? I don't know if they give you that information, but.
Yeah, good question. So in terms of tokens, it's about 1 token for 1 slide. So when prepping, which isn't that much at all, right? Like
Yeah.
50 tokens actually, in terms of other platforms we tried, the free tier is actually really low, especially when you start doing design-based things, because people are using image and video generation as part of that, which eats a lot of just a lot of costs from API calls. So for this platform in particular, I was able to generate 3 presentations, 5 to 10 slides on the free tier before this. And right as we were getting ready to go live, it was like, you can't do any more live demos. You're out of tokens. I was like, fine, I'll pay $15 to get 250 tokens. So in terms of 250 tokens, that would be at least about 200 slides that have 50 iterations for those slides.
Yeah.
So again, I think in terms of thinking about this tool and other tools, it's going to be the same cost as like running one seat on Figma, but you're going to get different kind of experience and different outputs in terms of, like, I think where this really thrives is that external shareability. Each one of these links becomes like a standalone website. So I can like share that, what that looks like. And even some part of their onboarding and some parts of their websites, they use they use their own tool as a way to share tools. So again, it really is going to depend on like what you need individually and what you want to pay for.
Yeah.
Yeah, curious on your side, Samil, as you're someone who's tried different tools, how do you think about like subscriptions and credit use? Feels like you could spend like $100, $200 a month just on throwing credits into the API kind of abyss. How do you think about that for yourself?
Yeah, I feel like I try to get myself in that mindset of like, I don't need to, like, I can use something for a month and then stop. And I think that's like takes a new system of accountability. But that's how I try to manage it, which is like, I think for SaaS, it was kind of like, you went through enough analysis that your upfront investment was like more meaningful. I think here it's a little bit of like a pay to play, depending on like if you're a enterprise user, prosumer, right? So I would say for something like this, I would try to do it for free. I don't think I make enough decks where I would need to pay for something like this, but if I was ever limited and I found this to be the most helpful, I'd probably try to, put a reminder in my calendar to cancel it a month from now and just pay for 1 month.
Yep, that's very aligned there. Once a month, we each try out different tools. My main goal is like, do I use them every day or at least 2 times a week? And then by the end of the 30 days when I cancel it, do I want to go back to it? I was like, man, I don't want to go back to making slides manually or things like that. And there's very few tools right now where after that cancel, I kind of have that initial reaction. And I would also say, I think the interesting thing too is large competitors can introduce new tools and functions just like early stage startups. So just as Perplexity had about a 1-year moat before web search was common as a function tool for ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, when starting thinking about like remixing some of these assets, with Figma getting ready to go public, they've been very ambitious on their AI generative tools, which I think they've been really focused on the visual generation where you can make AI images on their platform. So it's also interesting to start thinking about too, like when is it worthwhile for a specific tool or startup or a different product that will have long-term or maybe short-term value because you're trying it out for that month or that single kind of project you need, or long-term value in terms of competing with others too. So that's also another angle that we've seen. Also, we got time for one more question. Anyone else have any questions? It doesn't have to be slide related, doesn't have to be design related. It could just be anything. You're here on this call trying to figure out the latest in AI for whatever you want to build with. Yeah, go for it, Mahik.
Kind of build on Samuel's point here. The dialogue you guys are having. Like, what tools have you found besides? I mean, obviously the big ones that we all know about, but more of the niche ones that are coming about every day, like that are good value and bang through buck and worth, because there's so many. I feel like every day I learn like about 5 more, and pretty soon I think there's going to be a startup that just bundles all this shit together and starts charging subscription for it, just like the cable companies or streaming companies have done. Anyway, that aside, those that are more experienced with a lot of these tools and have tried out different ones, be helpful to get your perspectives. Thanks.
That's a really, really good question. I would say I think people are sleeping on video generated models right now. Like VO3 is crazy. It's got audio baked in. It's got lip movement. You can do different things. And so one of the founders we worked with, he's hitting now 3 million views on TikTok every single week with these like Naruto fan fiction style videos, which when you start thinking about like what that would take, you'd have to have a background in like computer generated graphics. You'd have to spend like dozens of hours for being able to like make those things. And right now it's like $100 to $200 in credits, and you can make out like 3-5 shorts every single week. So I think video generation tools like VO3, if you haven't used those yet, those are really interesting. Right now, I've been really interested by a tool, Lindy AI, being able to make AI assistants just on the fly super quickly. So one example right now is we're running a 30-day hardware worldwide hack where people of all different backgrounds are making teams, and even some of our sponsor partners are like, what are the backgrounds and where are people coming from? We just have people's name, email, and LinkedIn. That is not an enriched data set to be able to make a Lindy researcher that says, hey, based off this information, what's the background of this person? What teams might they be interested in? And what should we know in terms of just more information? It's been really nice to use tools like that, which create custom research agents that then connect back to wherever we're working. So it meets you back into Notion, it meets you back into Google Sheets. It doesn't stay on platform. So Lindy is a really interesting one for like integration and ultimately orchestration to across different tools. And then anyone else, if you want to share just your favorite tool, we got a minute left. Feel free to just share one tool that you've personally found interesting that you think the group should know or try out.
On that thread, yeah, I think the video, because I think that's where I started to see so many cool concepts of a movie broken into parts. Before you'd have cut up audio from the different parts, and now you have AI generated voices of the main actor walking you through the movie. So imagine Spider-Man, Miles Morales as Spider-Man cut up into different segments in a YouTube short. But instead of the audio being from independent scenes, it's Miles Morales narrating the movie. And I just that's gold. Things like that are absolute gold. So I would want to learn, I've been thinking, for some reason, I don't know how to do that yet, which is more on me.
Yeah. I would say usually either you have to start combining different workflows in terms of storyboard, music, voiceover overlays. And so sometimes you can take some different ones. Last thing I'll just end with too is 11 Labs has been pushing a lot on their assistant platform. It's called 11.ai. So instead of having to build out a voice agent from scratch, whether you're using their web interface or you're coding it with the API, being able to just have in 5 seconds, you can have a full web app that is a function and virtual assistant or voice assistant. Super interesting for rapid prototyping, quick testing, and interactivity. So it's one that just came out too. Just would try it out. Awesome. Well, thanks y'all for joining for today. Maybe we'll drop one. I'm actually running a full day hack tomorrow on video generation for a bunch of Italian CEOs in the fashion space. I don't know if it'll go well because video generation is interesting when you're making memes or shorts. Who knows if it's production level ready, because designers really want things pixel perfect. If that goes well, maybe we'll do a video gen session in the next week or two. Thanks y'all for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to follow up. We work full time to help people go 0 to 1, coding their first voice agents if they've never programmed before, building with new platforms. That's why we like to stay on the edge and ultimately just solve problems. We're not doing this just to play around with tools. We're trying to do this to figure out how do we use these tools in a way that can get to production level. So thanks for joining, everyone. Hopefully see you at a session. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
You're welcome.